I thought I was falling for an ordinary man until I discovered that kissing a prince can be more dangerous than in fairy tales. When the castle doors finally opened, I realized some secrets are worth dying for, and some loves are worth fighting kingdoms for. The storm was relentless as Emma Carter's taxi struggled up the winding mountain road to Rosenberg Castle. When the heavy oak doors opened, her breath caught. Alexander Rosenberg stood backlit in the doorway, devastatingly handsome, with dark hair, piercing blue eyes, and a posture so elegantly commanding it made her pulse quicken. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing simple dark jeans and a white shirt that somehow looked expensive on his frame. "Miss Carter, welcome," he said, stepping forward to help with her luggage. His voice carried a subtle European accent he seemed to be trying to suppress. When their fingers brushed as he took her suitcase, electricity shot through her entire body. "Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg," Emma managed, acutely aware of how he moved with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Yet there was something careful about how he interacted with her, as if deliberately trying to appear ordinary. "Please, call me Alexander," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "Welcome to our home." The way he said "our" suggested deep bonds, protective instincts. There was something magnetic about him that made Emma's professional composure waver dangerously. Dinner was served in an intimate dining room that screamed old money elegance. Emma watched, fascinated, as Alexander interacted with Sophia and Marco, 8 and 6 years old respectively, both beautiful children with the same striking blue eyes as their guardian. What captivated Emma was how Alexander balanced genuine affection with almost military-grade protectiveness. He knew formal etiquette better than any businessman should, automatically standing when she entered, pulling out her chair with practiced ease. "Uncle Lex tells the best stories," Marco announced, climbing into Alexander's lap. Emma noticed how the children occasionally addressed him with reverent formality before catching themselves. Later, as Emma tucked the children into bed, she found Alexander listening from the doorway, completely captivated as she wove an impromptu fairy tale about brave princesses and hidden kingdoms. "You have a gift," he said after the children fell asleep, his voice low and intimate. "They needed someone like you. We all did." The way he looked at her, grateful, attracted, but also deeply troubled, made Emma realize that whatever brought her to this castle was going to change everything. Alexander wrestled with his conscience every morning watching Emma care for Sophia and Marco. She had no idea she was caring for Princess Sophia and Prince Marco of Monte Carlo, or that he was Prince Alessandro di Montecarlo, rightful heir to a throne he'd abandoned to keep these children alive. 3 months ago, his brother Crown Prince Riccardo and sister-in-law Princess Maria had died in what the world believed was a car accident. Only Alessandro knew the truth: assassination, orchestrated by his uncle Regent Victor Castellane and Duchess Isabel de Laurent, who wanted to eliminate the royal bloodline. Alessandro had faked his own death, then disappeared with the children to this remote castle under false identities. Emma carried her own burden of confusion. The employment agency claimed extensive files on her, yet she'd never heard of Rosenberg International Holdings. Someone had specifically chosen her, but why? She was competent, but hardly extraordinary. A small-town American nanny with a degree in child development. What haunted her was how right this felt. Caring for Sophia and Marco, falling for Alexander. It was as if she'd been meant to find this family. But the constant feeling that everyone was hiding something made every genuine moment feel fragile. Back in Monte Carlo, Regent Victor maintained his facade while consolidating power. He'd convinced Parliament that Alessandro was too unstable to rule, and that the children needed professional care. His goal? eliminate them quietly, and marry Duchess Isabel to legitimize his reign. Victor's spies searched for Alessandro daily. Marcus Steele, former head of royal security, had helped stage the fake death and now coordinated a secret resistance. Agent Sarah Chen of Interpol investigated independently, identifying financial irregularities linking Victor to assassins. At the castle, Marcus visited monthly, urging Alessandro to tell Emma the truth. "She's falling in love with a ghost. You're putting her in danger by keeping her ignorant." The children struggled with deception. Sophia had accidentally called Emma Mama twice. Marco missed the palace but was trained never to speak of their old life. Most dangerously, Emma's presence was changing Alessandro. He was imagining a future beyond survival, falling in love with a woman who couldn't love him back if she knew who he really was. The local harvest festival called to Emma for weeks. When she convinced Alexander to take them, disguised as ordinary tourists, she saw him transform completely. Away from the castle's shadows, Alexander relaxed for the first time since she'd known him. "I feel like I belong wherever you are," Alexander said, watching the children play. "Emma, these past months with you have been the happiest of my adult life. Whatever happens, remember that what we have is real." As evening fell and traditional music filled the village square, Alexander pulled Emma into his arms for a slow dance. The chemistry that had been building for months finally combusted. "I've never felt so free," Alexander whispered against her ear. "For the first time in my life, I'm just a man in love with an incredible woman." When he kissed her under the string lights, it was desperate and tender and full of everything he couldn't say. Emma kissed him back with equal fervor. "I love you," he said against her lips, shaking. "God help me, I love you more than my own life." "I love you too," Emma whispered back. "Whatever you're afraid of, we can face it together." But she saw the pain flash across his features. Their perfect bubble couldn't last forever. The next morning, Emma's world began to crack. She found Sophia practicing formal curtsies, Marco studying European royal families. When questioned, both children looked terrified. She noticed men in dark suits who Alexander claimed were groundskeepers. When she mentioned driving to town, Alexander's reaction was swift. "Absolutely not. It's not safe for you to leave alone." "Not safe? Alexander, what aren't you telling me?" Fear clotted her chest. "First the children practice royal etiquette, now I'm under house arrest?" "You're being paranoid," Alexander said, but his face went carefully blank. "This area has had security concerns lately." "Security concerns? You're lying to me." Emma's voice was sharp. "I can't love someone who won't trust me with the truth." "Some truths are too dangerous to share. Please, Emma, just trust me." "Trust you? How can I trust someone obviously lying about who he is?" She gestured around the opulent castle. "No businessman lives like this. No ordinary man has security details and knows which fork to use without thinking." Alexander stood frozen, torn between confession and protection. "I can't tell you what you want to know, but everything I've said about loving you is true." "That's not enough," Emma whispered, heartbroken. "I need honesty, or I need to leave." 3 days of cold politeness nearly killed Alexander. Emma performed her duties professionally, but the warmth in her eyes had vanished. What finally broke his resolve was danger finding them. Emma was returning from the village market when 3 men cornered her, asking specific questions about the children of the house and royal bloodlines. Alexander arrived just as the leader grabbed Emma's arm. What happened next shattered his facade completely. He moved with lethal precision, years of royal military training. Within seconds, 2 men were unconscious, the third fleeing. "How do you know how to fight like that?" Emma stared at him, breathing hard. His hands shook as he checked her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" His accent was stronger now, the careful American inflection abandoned. Those weren't random muggers. They knew about the castle, asked about Sophia and Marco specifically. Alexander closed his eyes. I did military service, special forces. They were probably scouting for kidnapping. So you admit you're not just a businessman. I can't give you answers you want, but I love you more than my own life. These past 3 days without you have been hell. Despite everything, Emma felt her resolve wavering. I love you too, but I can't live with lies between us. Then don't, Alexander said roughly, pulling her against him. Don't think about tomorrow, just be here with me. That night, they made love with passion that felt like both beginning and goodbye. While Emma slept, Alexander received encrypted communication that made his blood run cold. Victor had discovered their general location and was mobilizing search teams. Worse, he planned to force Alessandro's return by threatening to execute remaining loyalists. Emma had begun her own investigation. The men had mentioned royal bloodlines before Alexander interrupted. Combined with Sophia's slip about when Papa was crown prince, Emma was piecing together an impossible picture. Her laptop research revealed shocking information. Alexander Rosenberg existed only in business records dating back 6 months. However, Prince Alessandro di Montecarlo, heir to the Monte Carlo throne, had been declared dead 6 months ago following his brother's assassination. The physical resemblance was unmistakable. The children's behavior made sense now. Sophia and Marco weren't just wealthy kids, they were actual royalty, hidden from someone dangerous enough to murder their parents. And Alexander was their uncle, the rightful king of an entire country. If Alexander was really Alessandro, he'd given up everything, crown, country, throne, to protect 2 orphaned children. The magnitude of his sacrifice hit her like a physical blow. The next morning, Emma confronted Alexander with printouts of everything she'd discovered. His face went white, seeing Prince Alessandro's official portrait. Your real name is Alessandro di Montecarlo, Emma said quietly. You're the rightful king of Monte Carlo, and those children are the crown prince and princess. Alessandro sat down heavily, all pretense stripped away. How long have you known? I figured it out last night. How long were you planning to keep lying? Forever, Alessandro said simply. If it kept you safe, I would have lied forever. Safe? Emma laughed bitterly. I've fallen in love with a ghost, with a lie. The man I love doesn't even exist. He does exist, Alessandro said desperately. Everything between us has been real. My feelings, my love for you, none of that was a lie. But you are a lie. You're a king. I'm a nanny from Ohio who grew up in a trailer park. Do you understand how impossible this is? I don't want to be a king, Alessandro said fiercely. I gave up the throne to protect Sophia and Marco. But that's not a choice you get to make forever. Emma gestured at news articles showing chaos in Monte Carlo. Your people are suffering. Someday you're going back to fix it. When that day comes, what happens to me? Do I become the American mistress hidden in a tower? Or do you expect me to transform into queen material? There is no way to make this work, Emma said, heartbroken. You're a king in exile, and I'm nobody. That's not a love story. That's a tragedy waiting to happen. Emma was packing when the castle's alarm system pierced the morning silence. She ran toward the children's wing as emergency lights bathed corridors in hellish red. Men in tactical gear had breached the east wing. Alessandro appeared at the far end of the hallway, no longer the conflicted businessman, but every inch a warrior prince, taking down armed men while barking orders in rapid Italian to Marcus and hidden loyalists. Emma! Sophia's terrified scream cut through mayhem. Emma found both children trapped while masked figures tried to force them toward a window with rappelling equipment. Without thinking, Emma launched herself at the nearest attacker, using every self-defense technique her father had taught her. "Let them go! You want the royal children? You'll have to go through me first." Agent Sarah Chen burst through the entrance with full Interpol tactical team. In the chaos, Emma heard Sophia's voice rise above everything. "Uncle Alessandro, save us! Tell them we're the real Prince Marco and Princess Sophia. Tell them our parents were murdered." Every remaining illusion shattered. She wasn't just a nanny in a wealthy family's problems. She was caught in international conspiracy involving assassination of heads of state and coup that destabilized an entire country. Agent Chen's voice cut through Emma's shock. "Prince Alessandro, thank God you're alive. Regent Victor Castellane has been arrested on charges of regicide. These children are finally safe to go home." With attackers neutralized, the castle fell into surreal quiet. Emma watched Alessandro speak with Agent Chen about repatriation procedures and royal transition. He looked every inch the prince now, authoritative, commanding, born to rule. "Emma, let me explain." "Explain what? How you lied about literally everything? How you're Prince Alessandro di Montecarlo, rightful king of an entire country?" "I never wanted to be king," Alessandro said desperately. "I gave up everything to protect Sophia and Marco. Because you thought you could play house with the American nanny indefinitely?" Emma's voice rose. "Did you think I was stupid enough to never figure it out? It was never like that. What we have is real. My love for you is the most real thing in my life." "Your love? You don't even know what love is. Love requires honesty, Alessandro. You've been lying since the moment we met." "I lied to protect you. Do you think I wanted to watch you fall in love with a ghost? I lied because loving me could get you killed. And now, what happens to me? Do I disappear quietly while you go back to being a king?" Alessandro stepped toward her, desperate. "Come with me. Come to Monte Carlo. We'll find a way to make this work. I'm a trailer park kid from Ohio. I know nothing about being royal. You need a queen who can help you rule, not a liability who'll embarrass you." "I need you," Alessandro said simply. "The throne means nothing without you." "You don't get to choose anymore," Emma said, heart-shattering. "You're a king. Your people need you. Those children need their uncle to reclaim their inheritance." Agent Chen approached with official documents. "Prince Alessandro, the Monte Carlo Parliament has voted to restore you to the throne. Your presence is required within 72 hours to formally accept the crown." Emma watched Alessandro transform as duty reasserted itself. His shoulders straightened, expression became regal. "What about the children's psychological evaluations?" Alessandro asked with royal authority. "Of course, Your Highness. However, your presence is required in Monte Carlo to address Parliament." Emma felt like she was watching a stranger wearing Alessandro's face. The man who'd kissed her under festival lights was disappearing before her eyes. "What about Miss Carter?" Alessandro asked, and Emma's heart stopped. "She should be compensated appropriately and given full protection status." Compensated? Protected? Like an employee being terminated with severance. "I've already made arrangements to return to the United States," Emma said quietly. "There's no need for compensation. I was just doing my job." The pain that flashed across Alessandro's face was real, but so was his helpless acceptance. "Goodbye, Alessandro," Emma said, using his real name deliberately. "Take care of Sophia and Marco." She walked away before he could respond, before she could change her mind, before she could believe that love was enough to bridge the gap between trailer parks and thrones. 3 months later, Emma existed in strange limbo between her old life and impossible memories. She'd taken a position in Columbus, caring for twin boys who reminded her painfully of Sophia and Marco. Every night, she fell asleep to news coverage of King Alessandro's remarkable restoration of Monte Carlo. The media loved the lost prince story. Alessandro had transitioned from exile to throne with impressive competence, implementing reforms, establishing foundations, negotiating trade agreements. He looked every inch the king he'd been born to be, but Emma could see what cameras missed: the careful control that never relaxed, smiles that never reached his eyes, subtle tension suggesting a man carrying impossible weight. He was fulfilling his destiny brilliantly, but looked utterly alone. Emma struggled to find purpose in her new normal. Everything felt hollow after being part of something larger, a family fighting for survival, a love story that defied kingdoms. Now she was just Emma Carter again, and the ordinariness felt suffocating. The worst part was growing certainty that she'd made a terrible mistake. She'd been so focused on their different worlds that she'd forgotten they'd created something new together, a family that transcended class and titles. The envelope arrived on a rainy Thursday, addressed in Sophia's careful handwriting. Inside were 2 letters and a newspaper clipping. Sophia's letter was pure 8-year-old desperation. "Dear Emma, Uncle Alessandro says we can't write because it might put you in danger, but Marcus helped us send this secret letter. We miss you every day. Uncle Alessandro is very sad without you. He works all the time now and never laughs anymore. We need you because you're our family. Please come home." Marco's letter was illustrated with crayon drawings. "Emma, Uncle Alessandro told us you went away because being a king is too hard for love. But I think love makes being a king easier, not harder. I drew you a crown too, so you can be Queen Emma and take care of us forever." The newspaper clipping was devastating. Agent Chen had given an interview expressing concern about Alessandro's isolation. "His Majesty has thrown himself into governing with admirable dedication, but those close to him worry about his well-being. He's refused all marriage suggestions, stating his duty is solely to his people and wards." That afternoon, Marcus called. "Miss Carter, Victor's remaining loyalists have identified you as potential leverage against His Majesty. Paradoxically, bringing you back under royal protection might strengthen both his position and your safety. The king is compromised by his concern for your welfare and grief over separation. Sometimes love isn't a liability. Sometimes it's what makes us strong enough to face impossible odds." Emma finally understood the truth. She hadn't left to protect Alessandro from loving someone beneath his station. She'd left because she was terrified of being worthy of a love that transcended kingdoms. That night, Emma forced herself to confront truth she'd been avoiding. In Marco's crayon masterpiece, she wore a crown, not because she was born to it, but because love had placed it there. She'd spent months telling herself she'd made a noble sacrifice, but sitting alone, watching footage of a king who looked hollowed out despite political successes, she admitted the devastating truth. She'd run from her own fear of being enough. Growing up in a trailer park had convinced her that people like her didn't get fairy tale endings. When confronted with love that offered everything she'd never dared dream of, she'd sabotaged it rather than risk being found wanting. But Alessandro had never asked her to be a perfect princess. He'd fallen in love with the woman who sang off-key lullabies, who stood between kidnappers and royal children without hesitation. He'd loved her courage, intelligence, fierce protectiveness, qualities that had nothing to do with bloodlines. The tragic irony: by leaving to protect him, she'd created exactly the weakness his enemies could exploit. A king torn between duty and grief was vulnerable in ways a king strengthened by love could never be. But Alessandro had never asked her to be a perfect princess. He'd fallen in love with the woman who sang off-key lullabies, who stood between kidnappers and royal children without hesitation. He'd loved her courage, intelligence, fierce protectiveness, qualities that had nothing to do with bloodlines. The tragic irony: by leaving to protect him, she'd created exactly the weakness his enemies could exploit. A king torn between duty and grief was vulnerable in ways a king strengthened by love could never be. Emma researched everything about Monte Carlo's challenges, royal protocol, Alessandro's policies. If she was going to fight for their love, she needed to understand exactly what she'd be fighting for. She wasn't going empty-handed, expecting love alone to solve problems. She began seeing how her experiences could be assets. Her childhood taught resilience. Her education background could contribute to his reforms. Her understanding of struggle could help connect with citizens in ways traditional nobility couldn't. By dawn, Emma had decided. She wasn't going to let fear disguise itself as nobility. Now it was her turn to choose love over fear. Emma's first call was to her sister Rachel. "Emma Carter, you are the stupidest genius I've ever met. You walk away from a king who loves you because you think you're not good enough? The man gave up an entire country for 2 orphaned kids." Her second call was to Marcus. "Miss Carter, I hoped you'd reconsider. Is Alessandro really in danger because of his feelings for me, or are you manipulating me?" "Both," Marcus admitted. "The threat is real, but I also believe you could be an asset to Monte Carlo. The king's greatest challenge is connecting with citizens who see him as out of touch. You understand what it means to fight for opportunities. That perspective could revolutionize how the monarchy relates to people. You're talking about being his partner in governing? I'm talking about being yourself. The woman who earned the love of a king, not by changing who she was, but by being exactly who she was meant to be." Emma submitted her resignation and began planning her return. This time, she wasn't going as a nanny hoping to blend into the background. She was going as Emma Carter, American woman who loved a king and was finally brave enough to believe she deserved to love him back. She spent a week studying Monte Carlo's challenges, learning Italian phrases, practicing how to articulate her vision. She wasn't going to simply declare her love. She was going to propose a partnership that would strengthen both monarchy and man. Her plan? Arrive during Alessandro's state dinner, publicly acknowledge her feelings, and offer herself as his ally in creating a monarchy that served all citizens. When Agent Chen called to coordinate security, Emma felt the final piece click into place. The international community respects King Alessandro's leadership, but they've noticed his isolation. A strategic partnership with someone who brings fresh perspective, that could transform Monte Carlo's position on the world stage. She wasn't going back to be rescued by a prince. She was going back to rescue a king from loneliness and build something extraordinary together. The state dinner was everything Emma expected. Crystal chandeliers, diplomatic protocol, Alessandro looking devastatingly handsome in formal royal attire. What she hadn't expected was how her heart would shatter seeing him up close, noting the exhaustion around his eyes. When palace guards announced, "Miss Emma Carter of the United States," the ballroom fell silent. Alessandro's wine glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against marble floor. "Your Majesty," Emma said, her voice carrying clearly as she approached the head table, "I request an audience." Alessandro's face cycled through shock, pain, and desperate hope before settling into royal composure. "Miss Carter, this is unexpected." "Your Majesty, 3 months ago I made a decision based on fear disguised as nobility. I told myself I was protecting you, but I was really protecting myself from the terrifying possibility that I might actually be worthy of your love." The ballroom was dead silent. Alessandro's composure cracked visibly. "Emma, what are you doing?" "I'm choosing love over fear, and I'm offering you a choice you should have had 3 months ago, not between duty and love, but between ruling alone or ruling with a partner who loves you enough to fight for both your happiness and your kingdom." She pulled out a folder, placing it between them. "I've studied your policies, your challenges, your vision. You're building something incredible, but you're trying to do it alone. I'm not asking to be your queen because I think I deserve a crown. I'm asking to be your partner because together we could create a monarchy that serves all your people." Alessandro's hands shook as he scanned Emma's detailed analysis and suggestions. "You did this research yourself? I love you. That means I love the work that consumes you, the people you're responsible for, the burden you carry. I'm not here to distract you from duty. I'm here to help you carry it." "Are you absolutely certain?" Alessandro stepped down, taking her hands. "Once you say yes to this life, there's no going back." "I've never been more certain. I love you, Alessandro di Montecarlo. I want to stand beside you, not behind you. I want to build something extraordinary together." Alessandro's composure shattered completely. He pulled Emma into his arms in front of 300 international dignitaries, kissing her with months of pent-up longing. The ballroom erupted in surprised applause. "I've been dying without you," Alessandro whispered against her lips. "Every diplomatic dinner, every policy meeting, I kept thinking how much better everything would be if you were there." "Never again," Emma said fiercely. "We make decisions together from now on. No more noble sacrifices." "Emma!" Sophia's delighted shriek cut through the formal atmosphere as both children came running. "You came back!" Emma dropped to her knees, catching both children in a fierce hug as Marco babbled about how Uncle Alessandro had been sad and grumpy without her. "Are you going to marry Uncle Alessandro now?" Marco asked, "because he asked me if I thought you'd like the ring he picked out." Alessandro turned red while Emma started laughing. "You already bought a ring?" "I bought it the day after you left," Alessandro admitted, pulling out a small velvet box. "I've been carrying it ever since, just in case." The ring was perfect, a delicate sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and absolutely her style. "Emma Carter," Alessandro said, dropping to one knee in front of international dignitaries, "will you marry me? Will you be my queen, my partner, my equal in everything we build together?" "Yes," Emma said without hesitation, "yes to all of it." As Alessandro slipped the ring onto her finger, Sophia clapped and declared, "Now we can live happily ever after." But looking into Alessandro's eyes, seeing the love and partnership reflected there, Emma knew this wasn't a fairy tale ending. This was a real beginning, challenging and complicated, and absolutely worth fighting for. "I love you, Your Majesty," Emma said softly. "I love you too, my future queen," Alessandro replied. And when he kissed her again, it tasted like promises and new beginnings and love strong enough to transform kingdoms. 1 year later, on their wedding day, Emma wore a tiara that had belonged to Alessandro's grandmother and a dress she'd chosen herself, elegant but not ostentatious, royal but still recognizably her. Sophia and Marco served as maid of honor and best man. "We learned that real love isn't about finding someone perfect," Emma said in her wedding vows. "It's about finding someone whose imperfections complement your own, whose dreams align with yours even when they seemed impossible." Alessandro's vows were equally personal. "Emma taught me that being a king doesn't mean ruling alone. She showed me that love doesn't make us weak, it makes us brave enough to build something extraordinary." The reception showcased changes Emma had brought to the monarchy. Instead of traditional formal dinner, they hosted a festival in palace gardens, open to all citizens. Local musicians played alongside royal orchestra. Children from Emma's programs performed traditional dances. Agent Chen watched with satisfaction. "You've revolutionized this monarchy in 12 months. The international community sees Monte Carlo as progressive, accessible, modern." Emma smiled, watching Alessandro laugh with local fishermen while Sophia taught children origami. "We revolutionized it together. That was always the point, not to change who we were, but to combine who we were into something stronger." 2 years into their marriage, Emma stood in the renovated Palace Education Center she designed, watching Alessandro read to royal children and local kids from community programs. Sophia and Marco, now 11 and 9, helped younger children with homework. "You've built something incredible here," Alessandro said that evening as they walked through Palace Gardens, now partially converted into educational spaces. "We revolutionized it together. That was always the point, not to change who we were, but to combine who we were into something stronger." 2 years into their marriage, Emma stood in the renovated Palace Education Center she designed, watching Alessandro read to royal children and local kids from community programs. Sophia and Marco, now 11 and 9, helped younger children with homework. "You've built something incredible here," Alessandro said that evening as they walked through Palace Gardens, now partially converted into educational spaces. Emma leaned into his side, amazed at how natural this life had become. "We built it together. You brought the vision and platform, I brought the perspective and programs." "Do you ever miss it, the simplicity of your old life?" Emma considered seriously. Being queen was challenging, every decision scrutinized, every appearance analyzed. But watching Sophia confidently address Parliament about children's rights, seeing Marco advocate for environmental protection, knowing Alessandro felt truly supported, none of that would have been possible from her apartment in Ohio. "I miss grocery shopping without security detail," Emma laughed. "But I don't miss feeling like my life didn't matter. Here, every day, we're building something that will outlast us." Alessandro pulled her into his arms, the same electric chemistry still alive and burning. "I love you, Queen Emma, for choosing us, for challenging me, for turning duty into joy." "I love you too, King Alessandro," Emma replied, "for seeing me as an equal, for trusting me with your kingdom, for proving that some fairy tales are worth rewriting." As they kissed in the garden where Marco had once drawn crayon pictures of their family, Emma reflected on how far they'd all come. They had learned that love wasn't about finding your place in someone else's story. It was about writing a new story together, where trailer parks and thrones could coexist, where a nanny and a king could become partners in building something unprecedented and extraordinary. The fairy tale was real, but better than the traditional version, because they had chosen each other as equals, created their own rules, and built a kingdom where love and duty reinforced each other instead of competing.
Your heart knows the way. Subscribe and follow the beauty.